I would like to call the Committee of Whole to order at 8:41 p.m. Present are all members of Council, our Law Director, Finance Director, Planning and Development Director, Human Resources Director, and our guests this evening. The purpose of this meeting tonight is to discuss the return of Council to our Council chambers for our meetings. The Director of Law could correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it is my understanding that we still have the ability to, under the state's emergency order, have our meetings virtually through May 31st of this year.
That is correct.
Thank you. I do believe, though, that it's important for us to get back into chambers before that date, if at all possible. And so in order for Council to do that, I believe that first, our Council must be comfortable with the arrangements in chambers so that the residents and Council members are safe, and also that we have a plan for the public to get in and out of the building. And I think that we should start our live streaming through the web when we return. If that is possible, I think this is a really good time to launch that endeavor. I think that streaming is an important part of our return, even if it's not technically required for us to return. We should still provide a means for people who aren't comfortable returning to City Hall to still watch the Council proceedings. So I'm going to start with this issue so our clerk can give us a brief update on where we stand with that.
Thank you, Council President. We've installed the camera in chambers. I've done a couple tests and they have worked. I still want to do a little more testing though, as the last one I noticed that it kicked me off the Wi-Fi and was using my phone data. And because we have to use a cell phone as part of the controls of the camera, as they don't have an app for the computer yet. So I want to try to do a little more testing and potentially work with Eric and IT a little bit to see what's going on with the Wi-Fi. But other than that, I would hope to probably, I've tested it with a couple of people so far. I hope to probably send out a couple of links. It would be during the day, of course, but for council members who are available to try to just so they can kind of see what it would look like and do a little bit of testing. But for the most part, I think we're good to go. Just a few minor little things, and obviously the more testing I do, the more comfortable I can get with it before we go. But we're very, very close to being ready. In fact, we could do it tomorrow if we had to, but I'd like a little more time to tweak it a little bit.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask, just being cognizant of the time that we're at tonight, if anyone does have any specific questions regarding streaming, I'm going to ask that you just reach out to Clerk Massarolo directly, or if you want to meet in another committee of the whole meeting regarding streaming, just let me know, give me a heads up, and I'll call another committee of the whole prior to our April 6th meeting, so we can have more of like a formal discussion about the streaming process. Thank you again, Clerk Massarolo, for handling all of that on behalf of Council. It's my opinion that once we return, it should be for both Council and committee meetings. Additionally, at least until we return from our July recess, or maybe longer, depending on how things are going, I'm going to require that caucus be held in Council chambers, and request that any in-person committee meetings be scheduled for Council chambers, because I don't think that at this time we can provide the proper safety measures for Council members and our guests in our caucus room. So for the rest of tonight, I'd like this meeting to proceed in the following fashion. I'd like Council to first discuss the items about what has been done and what still needs to be done in chambers prior to our return. And once we've discussed those items, we can move on and start talking about the plan for the public. So for example, how we plan to get the public in and out of the building and what should be required for them to come into the building. And we can talk about the date that I plan to propose for our return to in-person meetings. And then I would like to discuss the setup. Right now we have big plexiglass dividers between each seat on the dais for council and the administration. I think that we actually showed all of these to council last year when we were talking about coming back in before the virus cases spiked. However, just to ensure that everyone can see them, I'll ask Clerk Massarolo to take a couple pictures and email them to council tomorrow, if you would please. And then when discussing the plan to get the public in and out, we need to talk about the necessary safety measures for them. So for example, council members, you might have questions or concerns about chambers right now, what there will be for protection for the public and with us within the physical chambers, and any requirements that you want to be seen observed in chambers. So if we could please start the discussion, any questions or ideas from council about council chambers and the current setup, and what else you would feel comfortable, what else we need to do to make you feel comfortable when you come back in here for our meetings. Councilwoman Heeman.
Okay, I'll start. I have actually been in council chambers, you know, a couple different times, and I think the plexiglass between each of us is sufficient for its size. I know that there was concern about that. I was wondering, Madam President, if there would be a consideration made for plexiglass to be put in front of each of us. The reason I'm asking that is because when I've been in the council chambers for a meeting, these virtual meetings, there was not an audience, there were not guests. So the flow of the air, if you will, was just straightforward, and that would mean that, for example, the one time I think that you were there, you were 4 places away, you know, but we were not breathing or speaking toward each other. With guests, I think that that changes the dynamic of the airflow. So that would be a question that I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think that that makes sense. I think, Mayor, I mean, I would ask, would our service department be able to create some of the plexiglass so that it would be, we could, you know, create one of those so it would be in front of each of the council members' areas?
Madam President, they'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Williamson.
Thank you, Madam President. My only suggestion for that is if we do go forward, that we leave at least a small opening underneath so that if we have to pass the paper to someone in front of us, that we would have that ability to do so.
Thank you.
Duly noted.
Councilman Broussard.
Thank you, Madam President. The only question I have regarding plexiglass in front of us is, will that affect the audio recordability of our meetings? I don't know. And also, are we planning on wearing masks while in chambers?
So Councilman Broussard, I'm going to ask our clerk to address your first question. Clerk Massarolo.
Thank you, Council President. The audio is tied into our sound system, so the audio will be coming through our microphones. What it might cause an issue with is it might cause some reflection with lighting in front of us. I haven't tested it with glass in front yet, so I don't know if the camera itself would have reflections, but as far as the audio, which there'd be no issues.
Okay. And Councilman, oh, I'm sorry, Law Director.
You can continue. I'll jump in at the end of the comments that were being made. I wanted to add something about plexiglass, so I'll defer.
Oh, no, go ahead. We're talking about plexiglass, so let's get it all out now.
Yeah, as somebody who's walked into the plexiglass on the ends 3 times now, I think we need to mark the edge of the plexiglass. I mentioned like in some locations they use like the blue painter's tape to put something around the edge because you will walk into it and you will knock it down and will probably break it. I did not do any of those things, but it's going to happen. So just some way on at least on the edges, either for the mayor, law and finance, and then on the very edge for the far right and far left, because it's going to happen. It's almost guaranteed because you usually cut that corner and you're not used to something jetting out where your path is, and it will be broken. So just an idea that we can somehow find a way to trim that so people can see it.
Yes, absolutely. And Councilman Broussard, to your question about masks, masks are required in the building, and so so any members of the public who would be coming up here and sitting in the audience would be required to wear a mask while they were there. As far as council members wearing masks while you are sitting at the dais, does any council member have a strong opinion one way or the other as far as requiring that? I think that if we're, you know, sitting in between plexiglass, I would say that as long as you feel comfortable taking your mask off to speak or to record a vote, I would encourage you to do that, as long as we are not having issues hearing people through their masks into the microphone, as our clerk mentioned before. You know, it's tied into, you know, tied into the recording system. And we can practice that. I mean, I can come up here with our clerk as well and kind of bring a variety of masks up and make sure that the audio is still picking everyone up. Councilwoman Williamson.
Thank you, Madam President. I would highly be opposed to that. I think that if we are all in chambers, that our masks are to be kept on. Having us take our masks off, first of all, we're too close to each other, regardless if we have the dividers, but then we're also encouraging the public who come up to speak to take off their masks while they're at the podium. And I just do not, I think that's just creating a windstorm. And I don't think that we should be putting the public nor any of our employees or our members at risk for that. I think that if we're in chambers, then our masks are on and they stay on.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly and then Councilman Limpert.
Thank you, Madam President. I've been working in close contact with the public throughout this entire pandemic, wearing a mask, literally within arm's length or closer on a day-to-day basis as I work. I feel comfortable being around others with the mask on, and I will certainly wear my mask when we're in the council chambers or wherever we're at, because I'm just used to doing it. I think it's worked well to this point. I think it's a safety feature that we should continue with. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert.
I'm perfectly fine with wearing your mask throughout the chambers. However, I feel at our seats, it should be almost like the rules with dining, as well as any other gathering like that, where I don't think we should be setting requirements to or to not wear your mask at the assigned seat that you'll be sitting at for the meeting itself. So that's my take on. We shouldn't be adding those restrictions or requiring or not permitting people to wear their masks while they're at their seat during the meeting. Thank you.
Councilman Broussard and then Councilwoman Williamson.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to clarify my original question about whether or not we're going to be wearing masks. I'm in favor of it, and I was hoping the answer was going to be yes, but it was also kind of in conjunction as to whether or not we need plexiglass in front of us. So if we're all masked up, public and us, do we really need that additional layer of plexiglass in front of us?
Thank you. Councilwoman Williamson and then Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you. Going back to the mask topic, I too have been wearing a mask while I'm at work. When I'm at my personal desk, I'm able to remove my mask, but when I'm in the courtroom, my mask is on, and I am still 6 feet or more away from individuals. I know when our juries come back, they sit as close as we do to one another, and they will be required to keep their masks on at all times in the courtroom. I understand that when we go to a restaurant, we are also sitting with people that we're with all the time in a certain section, but all of us are from different places. We're all doing different things, and some of us are working with the public, some of us are not. I would not want to put someone at risk because we're taking our masks off at our personal space and we're still too close together. No offense, I love you all, but I also respect all of you and would not want to put one of you in harm's way because I maybe have something that I might be able to pass to you. The plexiglass is not like a bubble around us. It's just something to protect us from the sides and the front, but doesn't mean that, you know, droplets can't go into the air still. I'm highly in favor of these masks until, you know, the state says we no longer need them. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it seems as though the consensus of council is then to keep those masks on at all times. So looks like we'll do that. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to say that I agree with Councilwoman Williamson. I too wear a mask all day, actually talk on the phone with it, and the people on the other end of the phone at courts and wherever else I'm calling, they don't have a problem understanding me or hearing me. And again, I've got plexiglass in front of me, but it still doesn't, you know, remove the requirement that there are other passersby in the area, you know, just going back and forth. And it is important you don't know that you could be contagious or not contagious, asymptomatic. And since, you know, we're not dining at our dais, I don't really see why we wouldn't continue to wear a mask. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as seating arrangements in council chambers for the public, there were sit here stickers that were placed about 6 feet apart on the different benches that are here in council chambers. I assume that because the members of the public will be wearing masks, and if they adhere to the sit here stickers, that should provide a comfortable environment for the people who do choose to come up to our council meetings in person. Does anyone have any questions about that? Councilwoman Williamson.
Thank you, Madam President. So will someone be letting these spectators into City Hall? Will somebody be downstairs opening the doors for them?
Yep, so I was just finishing up our discussion about council chambers first, and then we're actually gonna talk next about like our plan for the public. So this next part of our meeting, we need to discuss what's required in order for the public to enter the building, the steps that they would need to go through, how to get them into our building since we have a new lobby and up to council chambers. So for example, and I would have, you know, again, I would need to ask the administration, Mayor, are people who are coming into the building, the public who are coming into the building during the day, are they required to take a temperature check
Madam President, we have done that, and we do that for Mayor's Court. But people that are generally just walking in, if they come into the building, yeah, I would say they take a temperature check. But if they're coming up to council chambers, I would say we have someone taking their temperature, definitely. And let me add, if I could, Chuck, if you want to get with me and just give me a set of everything we need to do to get this rolling, once we figure it out, then I'll make sure we have everything we need.
So we will then have a temperature check for people to enter the building. Now, again, this is going to be a question for our law director. Director Garreau, I know that it is, because we've had this conversation before, it's not legal to force members of the public to identify themselves, but would it be prudent to have a sign-up sheet in the event that we need to do some type of contact tracing?
It probably would be if and look, some people may not want to disclose their identity. I mean, the attendance at our meetings is not such that we, generally speaking, we know who's there. Occasionally, from time to time, there's an issue where we get a significant crowd to show up. It's probably prudent to request them to submit their name in the event that we need to contact them, and leave it up to them. If they want to submit their name, make it available. If they don't, most people I think would be amenable to that, and I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, and I guess kind of going along with that then, as far as privacy laws and that type of thing versus questions about how people feel, as far as their health goes. I know that I've been asked those questions to enter certain buildings, but then other buildings actually just require you to write down your information and do a temperature check or something. It really varies between where you're going and that type of thing. Do you think that council needs to provide those types of questions to people coming to our council meetings?
I've also experienced the complete wide range in governmental buildings throughout Northeast Ohio. Everything from most of them do a temperature check, and occasionally then they'll pick you up after somebody hits you with the thermometer, and then the next person will say experiencing any symptoms. I think the county administration building's they probably ask the most questions of anybody else in that I've been dealing with lately. So I mean, again, it's going to be your choice. If you want to inquire as to whether or not they're experiencing any symptoms, fever or what have you, it's up to you. Cough. I mean, I've heard questions, you name it, from all over the place. It's up to you.
Thank you. Council, any strong feelings about this procedure? Councilman Kelly.
Thank you. Just as an example, the government building that I work in, we don't ask any questions at all. We just take the temperature, and we have a piece posted on the doorways that lists all the symptoms. And if you have any of these, then please don't enter the building. Contact your doctor or however. So I mean, how you want to do it is up to you, but I'm not sure that, if we get a decent crowd, that you're going to want to have somebody there questioning every person that walks through the door about how they're feeling that night. The temperature check, and if you have something posted, I think would be sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lippert.
Yeah, I think we should be consistent with just the building rules as much as possible for non-employees, instead of trying to create a lot of different rules that would go outside of the scope of that. It would just be consistent whether you're visiting the building during daytime hours as a resident or whether you're attending a council meeting. I think it should just be consistent, and it'd be easier for communication and prevent any confusion. And with that, I have a follow-up question. So Mr. Mayor, are people required to wear their masks in their offices, or?
Masks are required in the buildings, but I don't wear my mask in my office. If I'm there alone, if someone comes in, we wear masks.
Okay, thank you.
And along with that, are questions being asked of people who are coming into the building, members of the public, after, during working hours, or as you mentioned, Mayor's Court. You'd said that Mayor's Court does do a temperature check. Do they ask any questions of?
Yeah, Mayor's Court's a little bit different because they really have a lot of people coming in and going out. They have an indoor and outdoor, which I'm trying to relate that to a council meeting. Not really the same. We just want to avoid like people piling up, and we want to keep people moving in and away from each other. Obviously, everyone that comes into Mayor's Court's wearing a mask and is separated 6 feet apart. A little different maybe than if you walk in and ask a couple questions. But we try to take as much precaution as possible. But whatever you guys feel, you want us to do, we will get done. And again, Chuck, just make sure you send me a list of stuff and give me enough time, and we'll make sure we have it all put together.
So then my next topic regarding the public would be how to get the public in the building. So we cannot have our clerk sitting downstairs doing temperature checks and letting people in the building, as he needs to be getting ready for our meeting. And as we know, people do not have, people don't show up exactly, right before the meeting starts. Oftentimes people come in a few minutes later or what have you. One thing that I had thought about, I spoke briefly to the chief of police about, was the ability for us to have an auxiliary officer on the nights that we have meetings, come and help with the door situation, letting people in and then doing a temperature check, that type of thing. If council or the administration could weigh in on that topic, that would be helpful.
Madam President, we could certainly have an auxiliary officer come in and do that. That wouldn't be a problem. We could also potentially have someone flex their time if they wanted to come in to help out, certainly, in the first few months. It's really, your prerogative. Whatever you feel the need to get done, will get done.
Councilman Glassburn.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not sure if you're towards the end of your topics or not. I guess my largest question is the timing for all of this. Myself, due to my normal health and my age, I'm part of the last cohort of folks that only became eligible for vaccines yesterday. So I'd like to know a little bit better what's our timeline.
Sure. So, Councilman, my thought was to return in May. So whether that is the first meeting in May, which would be May 4th, may the force be with all of you, or if we wanted to wait until mid-May and do our second meeting in May, that I feel as you do that the timing of this, I think, needs to coincide with the vaccination schedule that the state has laid out. And the more, the longer that we can hold off and allow our members of council and the members of the public to get those vaccines, I think we should do that. I think that's really important. So that was my thought, but again, it's your council, so all of you will need to let me know as far as what the majority of you thinks, as far as what a good date is for us to come in and start our meetings back in person. Councilman Glassburn.
Thank you, Madam President. So I don't mean my comment as a time barrier, just as just want to have an understanding. I myself, had a pretty rough time of it when I had the disease. And so for myself, I'm going to try to keep as much time as possible, but I don't want that to inhibit the rest of the group.
Absolutely. Well, and as you know, I also had a terrible time with it. And so, you know, that's why I feel very strongly that, you know, if we can, you know, it's trying to create this balance, right, between wanting to get back and meet in person and have our meetings as we traditionally had, but then also making sure that people do have the opportunity to get vaccinated and you know, that we're all staying safe still. Councilman Kelly.
Thank you. I'm comfortable coming back at any time. So, I mean, there's no timeline as far as I'm concerned. Whenever everybody is ready to come back, I'm ready to come back.
Thank you. Councilman Broussard.
Thank you, Madam President. I will be fully vaccinated by that May suggestion, so I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam President. Even though I am already vaccinated, I really feel it's important for the others that, you know, had to wait a little longer for that to reach their comfort level. So I will, you know, defer to, you know, any other opinion with regard to when we come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members wish to weigh in at this time? Councilman Lippert?
Yeah, I guess I don't understand the benefit of if we're doing masks, I mean, sure, you want added protection, et cetera, but if we're required to do the masks the whole time in the chambers, then I don't see the need for, you know, these added plexiglass and those additional barriers if they're an added cost of, you know, whatever we would need there. So, you know, I thought the plexiglass and those type of things would be there to be able to allow us to, you know, be virtual and be present. So other than that, you know, I don't have any reservations one way or the other as far as when we return. So I'll leave that to others to determine that timeline.
Thank you. Any other council members who wish to voice their opinions on when a date when they would feel comfortable coming back into council chambers? Councilman Schuman.
I don't have a problem with us going back. I think May might be a little early though. It really should depend on when a majority of the population has been vaccinated. I mean, young Mr. Glassburn there is a fine example. There are people that will be wanting to come to our meetings that may or may not have been vaccinated themselves. What we're talking about having most people have the vaccination by June is what that was the last I saw. Why are we hurrying this? If we're going to have to come back to these meetings and wear masks and be encased in plastic, why not just keep doing virtual meetings until we can be comfortable? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Williamson, do you have a strong opinion one way or the other?
I would agree with Mr. Schuman on this one. And I
Thank
would
you.
not be opposed to even considering just coming back in August.
Just
August
waiting
1st.
through our July
Well,
vacation. Mm.
If they're saying that the majority of people are coming in June or should be vaccinated by June, then we go on break for July. So then why not just make it the first meeting in August and see where we're at that time?
Okay. And Clerk Mazzarello.
Council President, I'm not trying to weigh in one way or the other on the discussion for you guys, but right now the state deadline, or the state ends their emergency thing for May 31st, is my understanding, for electronic meetings. So unless the state expands that, and the law director, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is we would have to be back in June to at the very least have an in-person meeting to approve our continuing to meet electronically via our charter.
Right, right. And to clarify, I'm going off of the direction that it ends on May 31st. I said earlier, correct. Haven't refreshed myself for that date, but I suspect you two have. And yes, you'd have to have at least one meeting in person to then continue in the under the charter. Whether we have the other ordinance in effect or not, we could just keep doing it the way we're doing it, until we get a more formalized ordinance in place. So correct.
Right. And Councilman Glassburn, did you want to weigh in as far as a date certain when you would feel comfortable coming back in?
When is our electronic meetings legislation taking effect?
As soon as the committee votes to get it out on the floor.
I'm not, no, I don't have an opinion further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Councilman Schuman, did I see that your hand was up?
Yeah, you could pull it up online. There's a lot of, obviously there are several different dates, but most Americans will have the opportunity to get a shot by the end of May. That's the estimate. So I don't know why we would do anything before then. And if we have until the 31st to come back, why not just shoot for June and see what the governor does? And again, personally, I'm covered. I'm good. So, I mean, if we're just a matter of me having a meeting, I'd go to it.
Thank you. So, so I have about 2 to 3 people who feel pretty strongly to wait a little bit longer past May to meet, and then I have a handful of council members who said that they are fine with whenever council decides to come back. So I'm going to read that as right now council feels that we could start with a June in-person meeting comeback. But what we could do, I mean, that we could go a couple different ways with this. We can reconvene committee of the whole in a few weeks and just kind of reassess, to see where we're at. We'll still move forward. I'd like the administration to move forward with the requests that, council has made so that we are fully prepared. We don't have to, have another committee of the whole meeting to make sure that all these pieces and parts are in place when we do decide to come back in person. What we can do then, like I said, is we can reconvene committee of the whole in a few weeks, and if that is acceptable to council, it seems like that is probably the way that we should go at this point. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with that opinion, but I'd like you please to count my vote as among those that prefer to wait. I would not be in favor of rushing anyone at all past their comfort level. So please count me on that side of the fence.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
you tipped us over, so we're going to wait then. And we will reconvene committee of the whole, like I said, to have a further discussion. And Clerk Massarolo, did you want to add anything before we close the meeting tonight? Anything else?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, wonderful. Council, is there anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, we will conclude our committee of the whole meeting at 9:22 p.m. Thank you.